forecast. Ozan Ozkural is the founding manager partner of Tanto Capital Partners, and very nice to see you again today, Ozan. Okay, just your impressions on that inflation data. The president says it's moving the right direction. Hard to see that at the moment, sir.
Well, I think it's fair to say that Turkey is not immune to the global inflationary headwinds that are facing all of us in the West, in the East, everywhere in the world. And I think it's also fair to say that we are still yet to see globally and in EM the full impact of both energy, but I think also most crucially food price inflation coming in the next 3 to 6 months.
Tell me a bit more about, and tell our viewers a bit more about Turkish exceptionalism as well. Why are we seeing such a stratospheric rise in inflation in Turkey compared with other emerging nations which have inflationary issues, like all of us do, but it has its own problems? Is this because of mismanagement at the central bank, dare I say it, via the presidential office?
I think fundamentally speaking, Turkey has always been a country that imports inflation. So even in our exports, there is a huge mix of imports that we have to deal with. So Turkey is a natural inflation importer. That's number one. And number two, obviously, in a world where most of the world is on a significant tightening footing, Turkey has loosened and, in fact, right now is remaining kind of still. That impacts or should impact the currency to a certain extent, but it has not done so because of some protective measures that the government has taken over the past months, including lately a week ago on Friday. So Turkey is going to suffer. The interesting thing is, Turkey actually is a country that has a lot of potential in the context of the geopolitical headwinds that we are facing globally within the supply chain, but it's going to find it increasingly more difficult, both on the public sector and the private sector, to finance the companies that need to get financed in these kind of headwinds. So inflation is just, I think, going to pick up more and more. The middle classes, unfortunately, are going to become poorer and poorer. And this has to have an impact on the real economy in a more significant footing, both in DM and EM, and Turkey is not immune.
I want to pick up on that point around what it means for the population, because we had the second increase in minimum wages in 6 months just the other day. Pay rises 30% to try and help protect households. And this is a sort of populist move, the sort of fiscal intervention that others want to see in some of the developed markets. And the pushback from economists has been, look, if you increase the minimum wages, then you can trigger even more inflation. You're not actually helping anyone out. It's this vicious cycle, and the view is that with this 30% increase, you could see inflation go up another 6% down the line. Just talk about the dynamics here of trying to help out, but getting it broadly wrong.
Sure. I think it's also fair to say that we have now officially entered election economic cycle. We have 12 months through which, until the next election, we are likely to see a lot more populist policies as much as is possible in the country. And it's an interesting point that you made there, because the danger that we face in the world right now, inflation is very dangerous. But if that leads on to wage price inflation, that's more dangerous. And I think we're kind of seeing the fractures in the DM side, developed market side as well. A lot of the sectors and workers looking to strike more and more as they find that their real income gets diminished. So it's a pain that unfortunately we'll have to put up with, unless, of course, politicians around the world give in to populist feelings and actually try to incentivize wage price inflation, which is a very difficult spot to get out of if you see it to this logical end.
Ozan, something that a lot of the EM countries are watching very closely is any pause in the dollar ascent. And then I think the jury is out at this point as to whether that's happened, even though there's been a little bit of relief in the last week or so. If there happened to be any improvement, if we saw some weakness in the dollar, would that subtly come across to the Turkish economy? Would you see any improvement, do you think, in the dollar-lira trade?
Look, at the moment, I think lira is in what I would call a dirty float, if you will. With this kind of inflation versus the US or European inflation, we need to see an element of, I think, change in the Turkish lira. By the way, that will be beneficial to the exporters. And Turkey has a lot of very good, sophisticated, manufacturing-based exporters in the world. So weaker dollar will not really benefit Turkey. A weaker lira could benefit certain importers going into the future. I think what's going to be interesting, though, is, as you guys always been talking about for a long time, we are in this world whereby I think it's fair to say that we have pressed a pause on the globalization for now, which has and will have significant ramifications in the global supply chains. So for a country like Turkey, or for EM countries, or even DM countries that have a sophisticated enough manufacturing base, the capacity, as companies look to diversify and hedge their China over-dependence risk, regional hubs will become more important. Now, Turkey has the potential to be one of the largest ones in the region. But again, it will find it more difficult to secure the right financing at the right prices at a time where risk is being repriced back at home. And I think that's going to be a major challenge that we have to see through.
Ozan, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't 1923 to 2023 an absolutely pivotal year historically in terms of the 100-year anniversary for your country? It's a pivotal year as well because, of course, we will have presidential and parliamentary elections as well. The historical significance will not be lost on President Erdogan as well. Just to frame for our viewers how important the events politically are going to be as we build up to that.
Look, it's phenomenally important. It's the 100th year of the Republic of Turkey's foundation. And it's also, 20-odd years since the current government has been in power. It has never faced as strong headwinds as it does now. I think across all of the world, if you cling on to that power. Now, the current government has done an incredible job from an objective perspective to have gone through the past 22 decades having been in power. It's not so easy right now. Again, as middle classes, the middle class part is important. Middle classes get poorer and poorer. As in any other countries, people will want to blame someone in the ballot box. And the kind of headwinds that we are facing right now is very difficult. So the current party faces probably the strongest challenge it has faced over the past 2 or decades coming into this election. And this is going to drive all sorts of policies, social policies, economic policies, geopolitical policies, as we move on to a much more uncertain world altogether.
Yeah, and for our viewers who've never heard of Kemal Ataturk, I suggest they have a look at one of the most extraordinary characters of the 20th century. Ozan, thank you very much indeed for that. It's going to be absolutely fascinating watching Turkey over the next 11 to 12 months. So Ozan Ozkural, who is founding manager, partner